The Unmoored World is where Dragon's Dogma 2's postgame takes place. It is here that we will be able to obtain the strongest weapons and armor, and the resources needed to fully upgrade them. The only issue is that there are both soft and hard time constraints in place that limit what can be accomplished within the Unmoored World. However, by properly preparing for it, and by tackling its challenges in an efficient order, we can make the most of our time in the post-game world. All of that will be covered in this guide, and as usual, useful timestamps can be found in the video description. We're going to start out with preparations to make before entering the Unmoored World. These preparations should all be done before completing the Guardian Gigantus quest, specifically the step to deliver the empowered Godsbane blade to Phasis, where the quest marker for it is located south of the excavation site. First on the list of preparations are Portcrystals. There are 5 that can be obtained before entering the Unmoored World, and we should do our best to get all 5. The first is obtained from Brant as a reward for completing the Feast of Deception main quest, which most people will get by just playing through the game. Now, as a quick aside, if you haven't done this yet, make sure to visit Melve beforehand, as some quests will be closed off after completing the Feast of Deception quest. Those quests involve getting the Mystic Spearhand vocation and romancing Ulrika, but I digress. The second Portcrystal is obtained by completing Glyndor's questline. It can be initiated by speaking with Glyndor near Roderick's smithy in Vernworth and giving him a human-made bow. The Portcrystal is ultimately awarded after completing the A Trial of Archery quest. I have a more in-depth guide on how to complete this questline, and I'll leave a link to it near the bottom of this video's description. You'll also want to complete this quest for another reason, which we will discuss soon. The third Portcrystal can be found in the forested Griffin's Nest, which is just south of the Misty Marshes. You can reach it by climbing a rocky path north of the minor roadway shown here, or by working your way through the Misty Marshes. For the fourth and fifth Portcrystals, we will need to make our way to the Sphinx, located in the mountain shrine. The quickest path to reach her is north of the border checkpoint Rest Town. A minor road will eventually curve east and lead to the ancient battleground. North from there, near the top of a ruined fortress, is the entrance to World's End Cavern. It can be a little tricky to navigate this cavern, and it involves destroying a boulder that is blocking the main path forward. In any case, once we do make it through, it is a fairly straight shot through the shrine corridor up to the mountain shrine. Feel free to complete all of the Sphinx's riddles on your own time, but for the purposes of the Portcrystals, we only need to do 2. The first is Riddle of Madness. For this one, grab your main pawn, which is right trigger on an Xbox controller, and use the same button input to place them down in front of the Sphinx. Then, speak with the Sphinx and confirm your answer for the Riddle of Madness. The second leftmost chest behind the Sphinx should unlock, and it will contain the 4th Portcrystal. For the 5th Portcrystal, we'll need to complete the Riddle of Conviction while we have a Portcrystal in our inventory. This riddle allows us to give any one item to the Sphinx in order to have it duplicated. Choosing to give a Portcrystal here will grant us an additional one when we open the chest that unlocks behind the Sphinx. Next up for preparations, we'll want to complete some specific side quests for different factions, as it will cut down the amount of work we need to do to evacuate everyone in the Unmoored World. The first of these is the full Sacred Arbor quest line, starting with the previously mentioned quest for Glyndor. We can find and speak with Darren after completing the A Trial of Archery quest to start the Ailing Arborheart quest. This all concludes with the Out of the Forest into the Forge quest for Darren. If we don't complete this quest line before going to the Unmoored World, then we will just have to do it then. Next, we'll want to purchase a Beastren mask from Ibrahim's scrap store, don it, then go to Higgs Tavern Stand in Bakbattahl. There, we can pick up some sacks of grain and place them in the nearby bale of hay. This will trigger a short exchange, leading us to a merchant that sells newt liquor, and we'll need this shortly. Once we've made it to the volcanic island, we can find Goutstafer and complete his quest, Put a Spring in Thy Step, which will unlock the Magic Archer Vocation and Maester skill. Once again, I have a guide for this entire quest, link in the video description. In addition, that quest will lead us to Geyser Hamlet, where Lamond can be found. We can speak with him multiple times to hand over all 3 bottles of newt liquor. After doing this, Lamond will reward us with the Warfarer Vocation and Maester skill for it. This is also important because Lamond will refuse to help us evacuate the citizens of Volcanic Island if we fail to give him 3 newt liquors, even if we raised our affinity with him by some other means. We don't need to complete Manella's quest in Bakbattahl, specifically Shadowed Prayers, where we protect the Empress from assassination. However, if you end up triggering the step where you need to apprehend the assassin before they harm the Empress, it's probably a good idea to do so. Now, don't worry if you are already in the Unmoored World and skipped over some of these side quests. There will be more work to do as a result, but that being said, I purposefully rushed to the Unmoored World and skipped all of these side quests. Because of that, this guide will show how to complete all quests in the Unmoored World, even if you've done the bare minimum to reach it. The one caveat is that bit I mentioned about Lamond refusing to help evacuate the residents of Volcanic Island if we didn't give him newt liquor prior to progressing into the Unmoored World. Now, there's one more thing to note before moving on. While it isn't necessarily related to the Unmoored World, we will be on the clock while there, and side quests will become unavailable as we complete the Unmoored World related quests. Because of this, I recommend doing any side quests or tasks that involve unlocking vocations and or their Maester skills. I also recommend farming certain boss monsters that have longer respawn times, such as Medusa, Gore Minotaurs, and more. Now let's talk about the final preparations before going to the Unmoored World. First is Portcrystal placement. These Portcrystal locations are ordered from most to least important. First is Bakbattahl, close to the Flamebearer Palace if possible. Second is the Volcanic Island Camp. Third is the Excavation Site. Fourth is the Nameless Village. And fifth is the Checkpoint Rest Town. Next up are the items we will want to bring with us. Until we complete the required quests, long rests are super detrimental in the Unmoored World, possibly as detrimental as dying, which will also undo a lot of our progress. Because of this, I recommend bringing a surplus of Wakestones and make sure to always keep 1 or 2 on your main character. I also recommend bringing any Allheal elixirs along with extracts that will help minimize the damage taken during combat. Additional healing items and debilitation curatives are also recommended, and a mage with the high Halidom and high Palladium skills. While there are lots of Ferrystones to be found in the Unmoored World, I still recommend bringing at least 10 along to start with, assuming you have them. Also, camping no longer allows us to rest and heal in the Unmoored World, but it can still be done to cook food and gain passive buffs. Because of this, I recommend bringing a single lightweight camping kit. Finally, let's talk about pawns. As mentioned before, a mage with the Halidom and Palladium skills is going to help a great deal with minimizing damage taken in fights, which is vital to our success in the Unmoored World. Pick other pawns as you see fit, but I went with a sorcerer that has the Maelstrom and Meteorin spells, and a fighter with the Shield Drum ability. Also, it seems like the main pawn will inevitably contract Dragon's Plague sickness in the Unmoored World, so just be aware of that. With all of that handled, we can go to the excavation site and complete the Guardian Gigantus quest. This will be followed by a final standoff with the dragon, and we're going to want to attack it rather than run away. After defeating the dragon, credits will roll and the game will cut to a banquet being held in our honor. To reach the Unmoored World, we must decline our task. Instead, we can speak to the Pathfinder sitting left of the throne. They will move a short distance away amongst the other guests. Speaking with them once more will transport us back in time to the fight with the dragon again. This time around, we'll want to crawl towards the glowing spot on its chest. At that point, our own character should be glowing and we can open the inventory menu, equip the empowered Godsbane blade, and use it on ourselves. Now, I don't think we even need to go through the dragon fight in the first place, and we can just use the Godsbane blade on ourselves the first time we ride the dragon. However, this may cause us to miss out on 100 or so Worm's Life Crystals, or WLC, which are very valuable to start with in the Unmoored World. In any case, after a short cinematic, we will awaken in the Unmoored World, a short distance west of the now uncovered Seafloor Shrine. The main difference in the Unmoored World is that all the water has vanished, uncovering previously inaccessible areas. There will also be new monsters that spawn, primarily in these newly uncovered areas. Overall, the difficulty is amped up and death is a lot more likely. I also have a super important warning here. If you die in the Unmoored World while exploring, you will lose all progress and start at the beginning of it, at least until you take a long rest, which will serve as a checkpoint. Because of this, Wakestones are highly recommended. Also, until we complete certain objectives in the Unmoored World, long rests will cause an encroaching fog to spread further in, cutting access off to certain areas. Upon entering the Unmoored World, Melve will already be covered in this fog and made inaccessible. However, we will now cover exactly what we need to do before taking a long rest to prevent the fog from spreading any further. Before that though, we can move a short distance north to the Bayside Shrine. There, we'll find the Dragonforged, and he will now have top tier equipment that can be obtained with Worm Life Crystals. It is likely that we will have enough to buy at least one top tier weapon at this time, so I recommend picking whichever one fits your chosen vocation. For me, that was the Magic Bow Grianmar. The Dragonforged also has a few Ferrystones and a single Portcrystal available for purchase. In addition, the Dragonforged can provide Wormfire enhancement on any equipment that has already received 3 lesser enhancements. This enhancement will have the weight and greatly increase the efficacy of armor and weapons, and getting the Wormfire enhancement on any item will also unlock the Dragonforged achievement. Once our business with the Dragonforged is done, we can make our way east to Seafloor Shrine. Along the way, there are plenty of Ferrystones to be gotten from chests and even certain enemies. It should be noted that the Dragonforged will also move to the Seafloor Shrine once we get there. There is a permanent Portcrystal at Seafloor Shrine, and activating it will also activate 2 other permanent Portcrystals, one in Sacred Arbor and the other in Agamenian Volcanic Island. Before leaving, we should speak with Rithias and the other NPCs to progress the Halls of the First Dawn quest. This will also get us 2 Ferrystones. Our next goal is to get back our main pawn. For that, let's go to the Flamebearer Palace in Bakbattahl. We'll need to travel down the northwest ramp into the Forbidden Magic Research Lab. To find our pawn, we'll need to go to the eastmost room at the top of a short staircase. With our main pawn in tow, we're ready to tackle the 3 light pillars scattered throughout the Unmoored World. This is important to do before taking a long rest, as it will prevent the fog from spreading to various locations of the map, which would make them inaccessible. We will also complete any evacuation quests that are near the portals. The first light pillar we'll handle is in Bakbattahl, a short distance west of the Flamebearer Palace. We just need to examine the pillar, then draw the Godsbane blade to start the quest, A Scholarly Pursuit. Also, it should be noted that dying while completing one of these light pillar quests is not nearly as bad as dying in the open Unmoored World. You will have to restart the entire light pillar quest, but you won't get sent back to the complete beginning of the Unmoored World. Because of that, I advise against using Wakestones during light pillar quests, as it's more important to save them for deaths that occur outside of the light pillar quest. Getting back to the task at hand, the first thing we'll need to do is run towards the Skyfallen Dragon, triggering a short exchange with Phasis. We'll then need to find an alternate path through Bakbattahl to reach the dragon. We'll start by moving west, then southwest down a small alley past the inn. We'll then take a sharp turn towards the south and run up a staircase, and be sure to watch out for the Saurians. Instead of going into the morgue, we will turn east at the top of the staircase and run along an unmarked path. As we approach the crop fields, meteors will begin falling from the sky. We should do our best to avoid them and make our way to the northeast passage beyond the crops of flowers. This will lead us to a backdoor entrance of the Magic Research Lab, and after dealing with some Saurians, we can move west and up towards the main entrance of the Flamebearer Palace. The Skyfallen Dragon will be at the end of a long haul. We don't want to rush in too quickly, as there is a cluster of enemies waiting in ambush. Once they are all defeated, we can go to the dragon. Personally, I've tried to carry the dragon back to Phasis' lab, but a pulse just causes it to be dropped instead. This will break the Skyfallen Dragon, which does complete the quest. Next, if we move towards the market area, we'll likely run into Manella and a short altercation will play out. If we then go speak to Manella a second time, she will task us with aiding in the evacuation of Bakbattahl, starting the Civil Unrest quest. There are 3 conflicts to resolve in Bakbattahl, and we are going to cover them all now. However, if we have not completed the Ailing Arborheart questline, and in my case I did not, we do not want to complete the Civil Unrest quest at this time, so keep that in mind. In any case, the first conflict will be in front of the Bakbattahl Vocation Guild. After we ask the reason for their duel, we can agree to bear witness and then stand back to watch. After a minute or so of dueling, the 2 fighters should resolve their differences. The second conflict is between 2 fathers and their respective children. They can be found arguing in front of the inn. We'll want to start by saying neither of you are in the wrong. We can then speak to either child and offer them some food to resolve the conflict peacefully. Just make sure the food is fresh and not rotten. If you don't have any fresh food on hand, you can cancel the delivery and go to the nearby inn to grab some from storage. The third and final conflict is to the north near the Bakbattahl home that can be purchased for 20,000 gold. The two squabbling beastren will begin attacking us if we try to intervene. Now, if anyone watching has figured out a peaceful way to resolve the conflict, please share in the comments. However, I found that just knocking some sense into each of them will resolve the conflict well enough. This is where your next step may differ from what is shown in the guide, in which case you may need to skip ahead. If you have already completed the quest out of the forest into the forge, you can go ahead and complete the final steps of civil unrest and finish the evacuation of Bakbattahl. However, if you have not completed the aforementioned quest, or if you are at all unsure, then hold off on speaking with Manella for now, as it could prevent you from successfully evacuating the Sacred Arbor. With that said, we'll head to the Sacred Arbor to deal with the second light pillar. There should be a permanent Portcrystal in the Arbor that we can Ferrystone to. To our immediate north is the light pillar, and examining it will summon a Purgeon or Worm boss. There are many weak points that appear along the tail of the boss, and Frost Hunter Bolt with the pinpoint volley targeting setting will make quick work of them. That being said, I'm sure there are plenty of other viable strategies. This is just the one that I used. Once the Purgeoner is defeated, the light pillar will vanish. Before leaving this area, we can find and speak with Glyndor to start the Wandering Roots quest, which is the evacuation of the Sacred Arbor. Glyndor's father will initially decline our request to evacuate. However, if we've completed all of the Sacred Arbor quests, we should be able to go speak with Darren, and she will get her father to give us an Arbor Heart cutting, which can then be planted at a specific spot within Seafloor Shrine. The problem is, if we haven't already completed the Arbor Heart quest line, we will need to do so first. To start that quest, we can find Darren and speak with her a first time, then follow her to the room of the Arbor Heart and speak with her once more there. This should start the Ailing Arbor Heart quest. I should mention that my pawn has the Woodland Wordsmith specialization, and it might be necessary for this quest. If that is indeed the case and your main pawn does not have that specialization, you can always search for one that does at a Riftstone. You can skip the next part of this guide if you've already healed the Arbor Heart and obtained the Arbor Heart cutting. For everyone else, we're going to return to Bakbattahl and make our way to Brocker's smithy in the southwest. There, we can speak to Sarah about the Scale Cinder, and in response, she will task us with retrieving an Elvish dish for Brocker. This will complete the Ailing Arbor Heart quest and start a second one out of the forest into the forge. We'll need a single rotten fish and rotten apple for this quest, and most people will probably have plenty of each sitting in storage. If not, just go into the open world and find a fish and apple, then wait some time for them to turn rotten. With those in hand, we can use a Ferrystone to quickly return to the Sacred Arbor. After giving Darren the required ingredients, she will cook up the Elvish cuisine. She will then give us a Ferrystone, which we can use to return to Bakbattahl. There, we'll need to make sure that we don't leave Darren behind, and go inform Sarah that we have the Elvish food. Both of them will then tag along as we head west out of Bakbattahl and journey a short distance north to the Straggler's Cave. Once all the NPCs are in close proximity, we can approach Sarah to trigger a short interaction, which will end with Brocker going off to eat his stew. This will give us a few minutes to scour the Straggler's Cave for Scale Cinder. I don't know the exact amount needed to successfully complete the quest. However, I'm pretty sure there are a total of 5 or 6 Scale Cinder in the small cave, and it's usually hidden beneath breakable boxes or other debris. In any case, 5 Scale Cinder is more than enough for our purposes, and once we've gotten it, we can return to the cave entrance and speak with Sarah to complete this step. After giving all 5 Scale Cinder to Darren, the Out of the Forest into the Forge quest will be complete. Before leaving, and if we haven't already done so, we'll want to return to Manila in Bakbattahl and inform her of our success. We can then speak with the Empress within Flamebearer Palace to complete the Civil Unrest quest and fully evacuate Bakbattahl. If you've already gotten the Arbor Heart cutting, then there is no need to return to the Sacred Arbor yet. However, for those of us who have not gotten it, we should be able to now. To do this, we'll find and speak with Darren near the Arbor Heart, then take her to speak with her father. The result of this should be 1 Arbor Heart cutting. Just to keep the guide a little more coherent, we will cover the last step of the Wandering Roots quest now. However, if you are low on Ferrystones, you can always come back to complete this quest after dealing with all of the light pillars. That's because we will either need to do a great deal of walking or use 2 Ferrystones for this next step. Returning to the Seafloor Shrine, we will plant the Arbor Heart cutting in the northwestern quadrant. With that done, we can return to the Sacred Arbor and inform Taliesin of our success. This results in the elves agreeing to evacuate, which will complete the Wandering Roots quest. Next up, we're going to head to Vernworth, and I definitely recommend using a Ferrystone for this. Before going to the light pillar nearby, we'll go ahead and evacuate the city. To start the Regent Kin's Resolve evacuation quest, we can go speak with Brant at the Star Drop Inn. Next, we'll need to head south to Vernworth Castle. The Regent Kin, or Sven, can be found pacing around his personal chambers, which are located on the 2nd floor of the castle. Upon our arrival, Sven will ask us for help. The first thing we need to do is grab his mother, Disa. She can be found down the eastern hallway in her chambers. After barging in, we'll want to grab the ornate box off the nearby desk, then pick up Disa. We can then carry her back to Sven. Before leaving, we'll want to give the ornate box to Sven, which will help him reconcile with Disa. That just leaves the ox carts. For those, we'll need to go to the Western Ox Cart Station back in Vernworth City proper. If we completed a certain side quest, Allard will not be there, and we can just speak with the Ox Cart vendor to secure transport for Vernworth citizens. However, if Allard is there, we can take aim at him or ready our weapon to scare him off. We can then speak with the Ox Cart vendor to complete this step. With that done, we'll report back to Sven to complete the Regent Kin's Resolve quest and evacuate Vernworth. Now, to reach the light pillar nearby, we can move down the stairs near Clovis's Barbary. This should take us to the docks, where we can safely get down to the seafloor area. From there, we'll run south along the west side of Vernworth. There are multiple boss mobs along the path to the Vernworth Southern Ruins, so proceed with caution. Examining the light pillar at the Southern Ruins will summon a Pergener Dragon boss. It has multiple weak spots that will continue to be produced as previous ones are destroyed. Again, I've found the Frost Hunter Bolt with Pinpoint Volley to be particularly effective. Once the Pergener is defeated, the light pillar will vanish. I will also cover this more towards the end of the video, but before we leave this location, we can move through the southeast passage of the ruins to find a unique armor piece, the Summoner's Crown, in a chest. At this point, we just need to complete one more quest to permanently halt the encroaching fog. For that, we will return to Talos, the giant construct on Volcanic Island. In my game, it's just north of the Volcanic Island camp. although this could possibly vary in your game depending on how long it took to defeat. If we try getting to Talos from the volcanic island camp, it is likely that we will be intercepted by Ernesto, who will request our aid to evacuate the island. It's okay that this quest is started, but it will be a moment before we get around to completing it. Instead, we will keep on our current course towards Talos. Approaching Talos will trigger a cinematic, followed by a cool battle that we unfortunately do not get to participate in. Despite what the quest description says, all we really need to do is stand around and wait for the battle to conclude. That will complete the When Wills Collide quest and get us the I Talos achievement. In addition, a final light pillar will appear in Seafloor Shrine. Examining this light pillar will trigger the final sequence of the game, ultimately leading to New Game Plus. Because of that, we should steer clear of it until we've done everything that we've wanted to within the Unmoored World, of which there is still plenty. Now, at this point, it should be safe to take a long rest, which will replenish our max life and save our progress in the Unmoored World. Having dealt with all the light pillars will ensure that the fog does not expand from resting overnight. However, there is still a time limit on how long we can stay in the Unmoored World, and that's around 10 days or long rests. At the end of those 10 days, our main pawn's eyes will be glowing red, and we will not be allowed to take any more long rests. So, because of that, we should rest sparingly until we've completed the remaining major tasks in the Unmoored World. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and evacuate the volcanic island camp. If we haven't already, we will need to speak with Ernesto to start the evacuation quest, The Importance of Aiding Ernesto. Now this is coming up to the one problem that I could not figure out a solution to, and it has to do with the final step of this quest, where we must request Lamond to aid in the evacuation. The problem is that if we fail to give 3 Newt Liquor to Lamond before coming to the Unmoored World, then he will refuse our request to help evacuate the volcanic island. From my testing, it does not seem like the Newt Liquor can still be obtained in the Unmoored World, and in addition, at the time of making this video, even if we get max affinity with Lamond within the Unmoored World by giving him a mountain of gifts, he will still refuse our request. It is possible that this gets fixed in a future patch, so you are welcome to try giving Lamond gifts to raise your affinity with him before proceeding. He can be found near Geyser Hamlet, and as a quick tip, an indicator of maxed out affinity is if the NPC in question blushes when spoken to. You will want to raise your affinity with Lamond before completing any major steps in The Importance of Aiding Ernesto quest, as once you've done so, you will lose the ability to give gifts to Lamond. But again, I just want to be clear that I tried doing this personally and it did not work for me. Also, the quest can still be completed if Lamond declines our request, just not with full marks. That aside, let's go ahead and complete this evacuation quest. To start, we will need to make our way west of the volcanic island camp to Windwalker's home. We'll want to deal with any enemies along the way, as it will make the return trip easier. Upon our arrival, we will be turned away by an elf woman. However, if we just go into the home, the old couple should agree to evacuate so long as we escort them to the volcanic island camp. If we completed Gautstafer's quest before coming to the Unmoored World, he will move at normal speeds while following along. However, if we did not do that, he will be moving a lot slower. At that point, I believe the fastest option is to just pick Gautstafer up and carry him along. It's then just a matter of retracing our steps and bringing both of our charges to the volcanic island camp alive. Once that is accomplished, and after the couple speaks to us, we can find Ernesto arguing with Lamond near the dig site. Ernesto will ask us to speak with Lamond, and we can do so right there and then. However, if Lamond wanders off, he can be found in his usual spot near Geyser Hamlet. On a previous playthrough, where I gave Lamond 3 Newt Liquor before the Unmoored World, I was able to request that Lamond guard for the smith and his wife, and he accepted. However, in this playthrough, where I did not give Lamond any Newt Liquor, he declined all requests, even with max affinity. That being said, I was still able to return and speak to Ernesto afterwards and complete the Evacuation quest, so I'm not sure that it even matters that Lamond accepts our request. Now, there is only one more Evacuation quest to complete, and fortunately, it is fairly straightforward, regardless of what other quests we have or have not completed. To do it, we'll go on a short journey east to the excavation site. You can also use a Ferrystone to fast travel there if you have a Portcrystal set up. In any case, upon entering the excavation site, there will be an encounter with a golem. As far as I know, this golem is special in that it drops one or more of the Electro material, which are the only ones that I've seen or obtained. Because of that, I recommend that you do not use it. Instead, make sure to have one or more forgeries made of it whenever it's needed as an upgrade material. As long as you have one Electrum, you can duplicate it at the forger whenever you need it for upgrades. Just remember that forgeries take time to make, and we have precious little of it while in the Unmoored World, but I digress. Once the golem is defeated, we can speak with the guard, Henrique. He will start us on the Evacuation quest, Shepherd of the Pawns, which is fairly easy. First, we'll follow Henrique to the cells, which are located on the west side of the encampment. Speaking with both the pawns and Henrique, we should be given the Overseer's Lodge key. This key opens a few different doors in the surrounding area, but we are looking for the lodge that is just south of the inn. A diminished Godsway can be found inside, and we need to take this back to Henrique. Giving Henrique the diminished Godsway will complete the Shepherd of the Pawns Evacuation quest. Given that this is the final evacuation, we should also complete the Halls of the First Dawn quest and unlock the Guardian achievement. This should also be the last overall quest to complete in the Unmoored World, which will unlock the Hero achievement. If you don't get these achievements, double check to see that your quest log is empty, and if it isn't, complete any remaining evacuation quests that are still in progress. At this point, if we take another long rest, all of the major NPCs we helped evacuate will arrive at Seafloor Shrine. This is really nice as it condenses all smith types in one small area, each with their own type of enhancement to offer. Even if we didn't complete Sarah's questline, she will still be able to provide us with dwarven enhancements at this point. At least that was my experience. Even though there aren't any more quests to complete, we can still go hunting for some unique pieces of armor that can only be obtained in the Unmoored World. There are 9 in total, and I'm going to include all 9 armor pieces in the next part of this guide, beginning with one that we've already picked up earlier on. In any case, closing the portal near Vernworth will also lead us to our first piece of armor. Starting at the city's north exit, we will move west down into the dried up riverbed. We can then continue moving south towards the Vernworth Southern Ruins. If we haven't already done so, we can interact with the Pillar of Light there and overcome the resulting battle. Afterwards, we'll move through the southeast passage of the ruins to find the Summoner's Crown in a chest. The second armor piece is the Hood of Darkness. This armor can be found near the Nameless Village. If you follow the road that leads east out of the village, there should be a path of descending rocks to follow down to a chest in a pit, where the Hood of Darkness is found. Next is the Predator's Maw. To get it, make your way to the Mountain Ruins, which is a short distance southeast of the Sacred Arbor. On the east edge of the ruins, there should be a short drop leading down to a chest with this helmet. We can follow the main roads from here further east to the Marshland Settlement for the third piece of armor. With all of the water gone, we can move into the nearby lake where a hidden passageway has been revealed. When entering the room with an undead knight, head left to find the Conqueror Sabatons in a chest. Moving on, we're going to get the Agamenian Galea. For this helm, we'll go along the main road that leads to Checkpoint Rest Town until reaching the bottom of this bend. This should bring us safely to the large dried up riverbed. From there, we just need to move west towards the other end of the river, clambering our way up as we go. Once we get past the white and reach the west end of the riverbed, we'll go into a small cave where the Agamenian Galea can be found. For this next piece of armor, we'll go to the northern entrance of Guerco Cavern. Moving south through the cave, we will eventually emerge on a cliffside. We'll then want to make our way down it past a forgotten riftstone. A short distance to the southeast, there should be a drake guarding a chest. Inside the chest is the armor piece we're after, the Vanguarder's Greaves. The next two armor pieces are both close to the Agamemnon volcanic island Portcrystal that is unearthed in the Unmoored World. For the first, we'll just head a very short distance east and drop down into the seafloor. A chest containing the Monarch's crown should be found near the southern end of this area. For the 8th armor piece, we'll continue moving east from the volcanic island Portcrystal until we reach this large circular formation. The chest here can be a little difficult to spot, but if you walk along the northern edge of this area, you should find a chest containing the assassin's breeches tucked behind a small ledge. The final armor piece is a little bit tricky. To get it, we'll need to head a fair distance south from the checkpoint rest town or west from Bakbattahl. We should eventually reach a minor road on the west side of Battahl that will lead us towards the Riftstone of Agility. Moving past the Riftstone, we can then go further south along the dried up riverbed. There should be an undead knight standing guard, which I've already defeated, and once he's been dealt with, we are free to grab the Promethean hood from the nearby chest. Beyond that, there are certain materials that are obtained from specific enemies that only appear in the Unmoored World, usually within the areas that were previously submerged in water. The main materials that come to mind are bolt scales, which are dropped by serpents, a special variant of saurians. There is also eldricite, which is obtained from specters, basically pink phantoms. I have found one Headless Horseman or Dullahan in the base world, but they are way more common in the Unmoored World and drop cursed Dullahan bones when defeated. The same can be said for plenty of other dangerous boss type enemies such as wights, liches, skeleton lords, and lesser dragons. The Unmoored World is also probably the best place to farm Ferrystones, which seem to drop randomly from all sorts of enemies in the once submerged regions. In addition, there are lots of chests scattered about, which will often contain Ferrystones or other useful and rare items. Along with stocking up on rare materials and Ferrystones, it's probably worthwhile to get as much endgame armor and weapons from the Dragonforged, as well as fully upgrade that equipment with whichever enhancements will serve your build best. However, it might be a good idea to save at least 40, but as much as 80 Worm Life crystals to take with you to New Game Plus, and we'll cover why that is in just a moment. In any case, once you are ready to move on to New Game Plus, examine the Light Pillar in Seafloor Shrine and draw the God's Bane Blade. This will trigger the final sequence of the game. It's not too difficult to figure out what to do, just make sure that you load from last save if you happen to die. Do not give up, as I personally have no idea what would happen if you did, and I don't want to find out. That aside, after the credits all roll by, we will be returned to the main menu. To start New Game Plus, we can select the option Restart Game with current level and equipment. There could be more new features in New Game Plus, but the ones I am aware of are all provided through the Dragonforged. First, he will still have all of the endgame equipment available for purchase. In addition, he can perform several other actions. The first thing we should talk about is the improved Vocation mechanic. We can improve one Vocation on our Arisen and on our main pawn. From my understanding, it augments the amount that core stats are improved by when leveling up with the specific Vocation that was improved. What this boils down to is that we want to improve the Vocation that we are using, and that of our pawn, as soon as possible. The lower our level is when we do this, the larger return we will get on our investment. The Dragonforged can also improve skills. We can only pick one skill to improve for our Arisen and one for our main pawn, and improving a skill will half its stamina cost. I recommend upgrading whichever skill you spam the most often. Next, the Dragonforged can reset enhancements on weapons and armor, which is great if we accidentally chose the wrong enhancements for a piece of gear that is either expensive or difficult to replace. Just know that you will not get back any materials or gold that were spent on those enhancements. Finally, we can receive blessings from the Dragonforged. The blessings last for one full day, and I'm not sure just how much of a benefit they provide, as they are fairly expensive. The only way I would be spending my Worm Life crystals on these blessings is if I had nothing better to spend them on, and there is a lot of stuff to spend them on. This guide was quite the undertaking, but hopefully you found it helpful. If you still have questions, you can reach out to me in the comments where I'll do my best to help. If you want to see more great guides, you can head over to my channel, and if you're new, consider subscribing. You're helping me feed my cat. Her name's Marshmallow. Have a great day if you're here today, have a great Friday, and a great weekend. And as always, thanks for watching.